Hello and welcome to the Vital Blend. My name is Anthony Vita, and in today's episode, I'm going to be introducing you to somebody truly unique, a one of a kind of guy. And I don't say that about just anyone. Not only is my next guest living a whole food plant based lifestyle, but he's been doing it his entire life, and he is now 70 years old. That's right. How many people do you know who are 70 years old who have never had pizza, hamburger, or hot dogs? And then again, how many 7-year-olds do you know that don't take pills? They're not battling with high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, obesity. Mark Huberman is the shining example of what it means to stack the dietary odds in your favor, to reap the many benefits of a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. And he lives by his motto, health is built, not bought. And it's a pleasure to welcome Mark Huberman.
Well, my privilege is that my parents, Max and Ruth Huberman, were way ahead of their time. In 1948, they had some health problems like most people. My late great father used to say, most people don't worry about their health until after they've lost it. And my father had polio. My mother had some thyroid and some appendix issues. My older brother, had bronchial asthma. Though, like for most people, it was a journey. Nobody becomes whole food plant-based overnight. I mean, a few people do, but most don't. He didn't. My mother didn't. But the story with little Marky is I come along, they're 3 years into this journey, still trying to figure it out and doing some of the big things like my mother, not wanting to vaccinate their kids, not wanting to give them cow's milk. That was kind of crazy. Now, my older brother wasn't raised the way I was because he's 3 years older than me and they were just really starting in this. But I come along and they're much more the true believers in all this. So in 1951, June of 1951, I come along and it was a very different world in 1951 than it is now. And the idea that you wouldn't want to vaccinate your kids, the idea that you wouldn't want to give them milk in school and dairy and things like that was pretty crazy. Cheese, you needed the protein, you needed the calcium. If you didn't do those things, well, my parents, didn't want to do that. So I'm born happy, 8-pound, 5-ounce, beautiful little kid. But the family put so much pressure, my mother's side of the family, my father's side of the family, that they were neglecting their children. They were calling the Humane Society on my parents for neglecting their children. It just was kind of crazy. So my mother, trying to nurse me, at least this is the story they tell me, her milk spoiled. And I developed a condition called projectile vomiting where I couldn't keep any food down. And so as things would happen, I think I mentioned earlier, 1948, 49, they went to a lecture of Dr. Benish, who happened to be in Cleveland, one of the founders of the American Natural Hygiene Society, the forebearers of the NHA. And Dr. Benish just took one more look at my parents, and he was a very strong, kind of charismatic guy. And he said, listen, he says, number one, you got to get somebody that can hold little Marky that's calm, because my mother was pretty nervous and all that. Just get somebody that's calm. His body will calm down. I mean, this was psychological insight before. He was a chiropractor, but saying, hey, do this. And in that interim period, and this is probably the only time I've ever been non-vegan in my life, for a month till you calm down and your nursing is better, try to find some raw goat's milk for this kid, something gentler on his system. Long story short, we got somebody who held me, a caregiver that was really a close friend that was calm. I started holding my food down. I bridged with a little goat's milk, then got in, my mother's milk came back normally and healthy, and I made it through. For reasons that still kind of, as I look back, still sort of defy imagination. My parents, who were vegetarians, but not vegans, my father, who still smoked, was a habit that he didn't kick for years. My mother, again, who was not even vegan, made her own butter, did those sort of things at home. They raised me on raw fruits and vegetables. Why? Because when I went through that health crisis, Dr. Benish said, the ultimate Sheltonian diet, the best food for humanity, is raising them on whole foods, truly whole foods. And whole foods meant peaches and mangoes and apples, and things like that. Not kind of what we think of whole food plant-based today, but it was
Right.
truly whole foods. I got through. I guess the way I look back on it, I pulled through. I survived. I began to thrive. And somehow maybe they just weren't going to mess with a good thing. That's the way they raised me. They loved me. I trusted them. We had a father knows best family. We all, if my parents told me this was the right way to eat and live, they loved me. So I believed that. And I believed that all through my grade school and high school. And then as I got older, and I had the good fortune of growing up with Alan Goldhammer and Joel Furman, and these guys were a little bit younger than me, but learning that these principles that my parents raised me on more as a matter of faith and belief, almost religion, were validated scientifically. It really did make sense.
And this was in the 50s, right?
This is in the 50s. I was born in 1951.
Yeah. And speaking of the NHA, people may not know what that is, but they should, because they're the gold standard for the whole food plant-based movement, not the plant-based movement, the whole food plant-based movement. And they have conferences annually. Why don't you talk a little bit about the NHA?
Sure. Well, we're the oldest organization on the planet advocating a 100% whole plant food diet that we've been doing since our founding in 1948 by, again, people like Herbert Shelton and Gerald Benish and William Esser. These are people that were way ahead of their time. And they started holding annual conferences in 1949, where, again, the faithful of this movement gathered and continue to gather. And we do it every year. This year, it's going to be June 24th to the 26th in Cleveland, where some of the leading voices of this movement come every year. Joel Furman, Alan Goldhammer, Stefan Esser, Frank Sabatino. But we also bring in some other well-known people. This year, we have Columbus Batiste, the cardiologist, Brenda Davis, a dietitian in that. We have some great people. And it's June 24th to the 26th. Your meals are included for the weekend. We're one of the most affordable conferences you could go to. I think it's $665 for the weekend, includes your dinner on Friday, breakfast, lunch, and dinner on Saturday, breakfast and lunch, all your other activities included. It's in an Embassy Suites in Independence, right outside of Cleveland. It's a free shuttle from the airport. So it's it's wonderful. I think one of the observations I have of being in this movement for so long is that it's not often that couples do this together. More often than not, it's a wife or a husband because of their health problem, and the other, they love each other, so they support each other, but they're not always so lucky, and it's a lonely journey. And you don't know a lot of like-minded people spread around the country. You don't get invited to dinner. They wouldn't want to come to your house for dinner. So to come together of like-minded people for an entire weekend and not have to worry about running out to Whole Foods to get something for your room is a wonderful experience. And then to when Joel Furman and Alan Goldhammer and these people come to our conferences, they hang out like everybody else. You're eating lunch with them. They're just sitting in the auditorium like everybody else. So it's a really interesting experience. It's community.
Yeah.
And that's pretty, as my late great father used to say, when you come to one of these conferences, even if you've been doing it for a long time, it recharges your battery. It re-inspires you to, and you always learn something new. I think we're always learning something new. So it's a great weekend. That's the one of the principal education things that the NHA does. We're primarily about health and the science of health. So we came up with the term health science, which became our URL. It became the name of our magazine. Membership in the NHA hasn't changed in probably 20 years. We're a 501c3, so we don't sell anything other than information. It's still $35 a year. And for that $35 a year, you get a print copy of Health Science Magazine, which is, I'm the editor of it, but even if I wasn't, I proudly say I think it's one of the best.
I have one.
It's one of the best magazines on the planet. What's really unique about it is that it's 40 pages long and it has no advertising. And for our 44 years of publishing it, it's had no advertising. And a 40-page magazine of that quality, it's just, as you've seen, I think, Anthony, it's the quality of Newsweek or anything that's on the newsstand in terms of paper and pictures and quality. But better yet, for any of your viewers, I'm a long believer that people should get to look before they leap. So even if $35 is a little bit steep, if they email me at mhuberman@healthscience.org, mhuberman@healthscience.org, I'll send them a free PDF of the latest issue of the magazine, winter
That's awesome.
2022. And if they like it and they join the NHA, they join within a week or 10 days after that, I'll send them a print copy.
Sure. Yeah. And one thing I just want to say to all my followers, thank you, by the way, for offering them a free issue.
They just have to email me at mhuberman@healthscience.org
I'll
or go
put
to the
that up.
website healthscience.org, and I'll send them a
Want to show
free
them this
PDF.
is, I don't normally promote books or magazines or, anything really in terms of products, but this here is a fantastic magazine. And I'm not just saying that. Like Mark says, 40 pages, wall to wall, no ads. It is whole food, plant-based. So if you're out there thinking, well, there's no magazine that's really geared towards whole food. No, this is whole food, plant-based interviews. Mark, it almost feels like the Facebook page that I have, The Vital Blend. This almost seems like a magazine version of it because it's, interviews, recipes, information, testimonials. It's all this in written form and it's quality. And I can't recommend it more. So if you want to have a magazine that's geared towards whole food, plant-based, health science is it. And I want to thank you for making that offer to all my followers.
My pleasure.